All right. Cam Underwood from the State of the U is joining us. Cam, thank you for being here, man. Managing editor, right? That's the title?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Pete, appreciate the invite. Got connected from our mutual friend, Mike McDaniel. And a shout out to Mike, one of your Hokie brethren up there. But yeah, man, glad to be here. Good to talk some Hurricanes. Got, for the first time in a good long time, a really good, I think, Miami team to talk about. So yeah, happy to be with you.
You are feeling a lot better today than Hokie Nation. Let me tell you what. That was a nice win. And let's go right to that USF game before we
Yeah.
kind of talk some Canes and Hokies. It was tight for a while, but
Mhm.
Miami blew them out when it was all said and done, 50-15. Cam Ward was outstanding yet again, 450 total yards, 3 touchdowns, a 94.1 QBR. Something about Cam Ward that stood out to me as I was kind of prepping for this and just looking at the stats. Like, he hasn't had a game with an under 91 QBR on the year. I was so impressed with what they were able to do. What changed to allow Miami to take control of that game?
Honestly, Miami got out of Miami's way. Like, that was the only thing that was keeping USF in the game. Had 8 penalties in the first half. That's as many as Miami had in each of the previous 2 games. Jacoby George had a huge play on that switch release skinny post, but then out of nowhere, for no reason, bobbles it, and then USF catches it for an interception, which technically goes on Cam Ward's record. But like, that was a third down conversion and a big play right there.
Yeah.
And then they're pulling out every trick play possible. They hit a Philly special. A dude almost, they were offsides by 7 yards, but went for the onside kick. But look, you got to do that if you're USF. You got to throw everything out there, and you got to hope that Miami is not playing their A game.
Yeah.
And we weren't. And they were doing a really nice job of like mesh crossing routes and things. So that little walk on Wes Welker dude, number 38, I don't know, know his name. But they were doing a lot of pick routes. And like, hey, I don't say it like as a pejorative, because like Miami ran pick routes even for that Xavier Restrepo touchdown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rub routes and things like that. But they were doing a lot to get him open and running in some space and things like that. But it was really a lot. That whole first half was an exercise in Miami getting in their own way. And in doing so, allowing I'm just going to call it a spade, allowing an inferior team to stick around.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And so, yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but they ran off 5 straight touchdowns, like from the end of the second through the end of the game. And like I said, ended up crushing them.
And I
This
think that's
was,
more emblematic of what the difference is. Once Miami settled down, Mario Cristobal famously, one of his things on the sideline last year, he was talking to the ref, but we were parroting that and said, no more bullshit. I don't know if I can curse on it, but he was saying that, and he said it in the locker room, right? And the team finally got it together. They tightened things up, and you saw what it was.
now, I wouldn't say any of the teams you've played are crazy good, but to me, I thought this game was a more impressive victory than the Florida game. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, USF was the toughest opponent that we've had so far this year. They're a better team than Florida as currently constructed, and they were hyped up on a Saturday night. So yeah, and they run a unique offense. You don't see that every week. Mario Cristobal at his he does like a Monday morning radio show and also has Monday morning pressers, and at both of them he's like, dude, what Miami had to do to simulate that is they had the scout team in 2 huddles during practice. So it was like, cool, huddle 1 runs a play immediately, bang, after that, huddle 2 on the ball, run a play, because we don't run that kind of tempo. It's really hard to
That's interesting.
approximate.
Wow.
So you had to go and do different kind of stuff to even have that be something that you're experienced against. And that is that the tempo did get us a little bit. Louis Riddick, love him. He's talking about, oh, hey, this heat and this humidity, bro. We're in actual South Florida. Like, I live in Fort Lauderdale. Like, I went to the Tampa's up the road, like 3.5
that's
hours.
like, is Tampa even South Florida? But like, that's just what the university's called.
Right, exactly. So he's like, yeah, all this humidity and everything. I was like, bro, like, we're in the actual like humidity and everything. So, but I mean, yeah, going at that kind of tempo is challenging and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought that this was a better win. This is the best win that we've had of the 4 games that we played. The most challenging team, and I think a good wrap up to the non-conference season going into conference.
So 592 yards of offense for Miami, 188 rushing. And it wasn't even Martinez, though he did have the touchdowns. Lyle had that 91-yard run, so he ended up with the highest total. But even Ward ran for more yards than Damian. 4 sacks for the defense, just 62 rush yards allowed. And that's a pretty darn good offense and a pretty darn good quarterback. So to me, it was a dominant performance. And Miami's really been dominant all year long. What has impressed you the most about this team, particularly versus the last couple Cristobal teams?
Going out and handling business, being dialed in and focused, and performing to the level of the talent on this roster. Miami has done less with more than pretty much anybody in the country ever since I graduated in 04. You know what I mean?
We've all said it. Yes.
But we all have seen it. It's not hard. You have all these blue chips down here. Like, yeah, you lose a couple receivers to Alabama, no state, and whatever. But like, you still have way more talent than teams you're losing to on a regular basis. This team, and even one of the seniors, Jalen Rivers, the starting left tackle, said, "Look, I've been here for a long time. I'm tired of it. Like, we've had these ups and downs. We've had these shenanigans. The Georgia Tech game that still haunts this team from last year, where all you got to do is take a knee, but you want to." I still believe that they were trying to get Donald Chaney Jr. his first 100-yard game with giving him that carry on the last, because he had 99 going in. I still believe that, and then you see what happens. And, Rivers and these guys who have been here for a couple of years with Cristobal, even predating Cristobal, because we still have a couple of those guys still on this team too, said, look, we're tired of this, man. So whatever we got to do, whatever we got to be focused on for this moment, this play right here, that's what we're going to lean in on, and not being swayed by, the little waves in the game. Like everybody, brought it up. I saw Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples talk, oh my God, like USF was up 15-14. We gifted them 10 points, 9 points, because they missed the extra, or we blocked the extra point on the touchdown. You know what I mean? But like, without that, they probably score 3 in the first half, maybe 6, you know what I mean? But like, it's just really not getting swayed on a play-to-play basis, alignment assignment technique, being focused on the next play, doing their best and stacking those and being confident in the process that we have here. That's the really big difference. This is starting to really be, they're not window dressing it anymore. They're living it. It's in their bones. And that's so great when you have the kind of talent that we have to see that coming to the forefront.
And how much of that is due to some of the guys that you brought in? Cam Ward, Washington State, maybe not be, they may not be a perennial winner, but that's a program that wins more than they lose. Then you also have Damian Martinez, who we talked about, coming from Oregon State. That's a program that won, I think when he was there, they almost won 30 games while he was at Oregon State. Bringing in those guys who come from winning programs who expect to win, how much do you think that has contributed to the overall culture at Miami, which has, from the outside looking in, had a lot of issues over the past few years?
I think that there's a measure of that. I think it's more Cam Ward than anything. Like, everybody just talks about the incredible alpha leader that he is, and being focused on improvement and development, and, being really, we use a phrase in Miami, we're pissed off for greatness. You know what I mean? Just being really singularly focused on excellence and perfection. And then I think there was some of that, but then also having the right individuals to plug in with what we've already had here in this locker room. It just takes a couple of years. Francis Mawinoa, for freshman All-American right tackle, in the mold of Penei Sewell, who plays for my Detroit Lions, right? He's now a sophomore, 6'6", 350, wiping people out. I mean, at the goal line, I don't know if you saw it, Cam Ward was like, hey, we're running here, because he knows he got Big 61 who's crashing down and making that happen. Yeah. And even Cristobal said it on his radio appearance, I believe, today. He said, look, not Penei Sewell, Mawinoa doesn't talk a lot, but when he does, everybody listens. And that's not a guy that was brought in from the outside. That's a guy who's been here. You have Wesley Basaint as a true junior from Miami Central Senior High School, starting now next to the other Mawinoa brother who came also from Washington State last year at middlebacker. But now he's a guy who's been here, grown up in this program from this city, and now stepping into a leadership role. So I think that it's, it's one of those things when you have maybe some leftover rice and green beans, and you're like, yo, so for dinner, I'm just going to go to Publix and grab some chicken. right? And it rounds everything else out. I don't got to start wholly from scratch right now. I think adding Cam Ward, I think adding in like a Mish Powell who played in the national championship game at Washington last year, getting those select guys and adding that in has really made and helped everything come together, especially when the most important guy is leading your team and he's playing as the best quarterback in the country right now.
So what I'm hearing is that off the field, non-game day coaching stuff, Mario, and we saw this at Oregon and we're seeing it now, does a great job of recruiting and building the roster. But it also sounds like he's done a very good job of doing the culture building as well. And so let's go to the miscues, so to speak, that we've all heard about Mario Cristobal, the criticisms that his in-game coaching maybe isn't up to par, and we've seen that on the field play out a few times. Do you still fear maybe that those things could pop up this year, or are you thinking that this team might be over that hump?
I think that we've seen improvement along that path, which is the first step to getting towards excellence, right? You know, when you're rebuilding a team, they say you got to go from terrible to bad, bad to average, average to above average to good, right? I think that we've seen that kind of progression from Cristobal. You're not seeing the bad timeouts early, especially in like the third quarter. You're not seeing those anymore. Like maybe in the first half as the game is getting going, hey, we planned this, they're doing that. You know, you might see a little bit of that, but you've seen the growth in a positive way. You know, after the first year here, we had Josh Gaddis fresh off of a Broyles Award at Michigan as offensive coordinator, him and Kevin Steele, who's been around, you know, for ever coaching. I mean, he's literally been coaching longer than I've been alive, and I'm in my 40s. So, you know, we thought we had the right brain trust at coordinator that first year. And no, we could see from the very beginning, this is not the group of coordinators and staff that we need. And Cristobal said, hey, cool. Going in a different direction. Shannon Dawson, who coached Geno Smith at West Virginia, among other places that he has been an offensive coordinator. Lance Guidry, you bring him down a year after he coordinated one of the best defenses in America at Marshall. Now you first bring them in last year and you keep them and have the continuity this year.
Yeah, that
and
helps.
You allow them to do their thing. And then, like, just because we can do it, Hall of Famer Jason Taylor, come on, you want to coach? And you want to still live here in South Florida where you played the majority of your career, your Hall of Fame NFL career? Come on down. We'll have you coach defensive line. You know what I mean? So like,
you don't feel like that's a gimmick. Like we're seeing that with Warren Sapp at Colorado too, right? Like they bring in Sapp and well, I was like, oh yeah, this is Colorado. They're doing, but I think there's a little bit of a different situation here.
No, absolutely. I mean, Warren Sapp, he's a little mad because like we wouldn't bring him into coaching. It's like you've never like coached and like, you know, shown that you really have the connection to it and everything. And you know, Jason Taylor is great. Like obviously, like I said, NFL Hall of Famer, and you have multiple guys that he's developing into NFL players. He goes out and recruits his ass off too. And like, you know that on a Cristobal staff, if you're not trying to always be recruiting, you're not trying to be working here. You know what I mean? Because you gotta go do it. You know, you go into Chicago and you get, you know, 5-star Justin Scott, who was gonna come to Miami, got a little gun shy, committed to O State as a defensive tackle 5-star. He flips down here because of Jason Taylor and the recruiting. You get his good friend Marquise Lightfoot from Chicago, 4-star All-American. Boom, you get Elias Rudolph from Cincinnati Taft High School. Boom, you get him. You get Ruben Bain from the backyard of Miami Central.
All right, now you're making me jealous. All right.
And like, honestly, you should be. But I'm saying these are all the guys that Jason Taylor has gotten his personal self.
That's fantastic,
I'm not even talking about the other guys that the other staff members, right? So I say all of that to say when faced immediately year one, which I really call year zero for Cristobal, that 2022 season.
Yeah.
Because it's 24, right? So the 2022 season, I really call that year zero, but he was like, cool, this is what we're going to do. This is how I think we're going to run this. And immediately saw that hypothesis failed. No, absolutely not. This is not the way to go. He said, you know what? I hear you. I see it. You saw it. We all know it. And immediately went in a different direction. I think that shows a focus on the long-term growth and health of this program that coaches that have previously been here did not have. Because famously, Mark Richt retired because he did not have the gumption at that time of his career to fire his son and bring in a play calling offensive coordinator, because we gave him the keys and said, you can call plays, Mark, and your son can, without any experience, be the quarterback coach at the University of Miami. And then after that really went terribly, said, this is the path forward. And he said, you know what? I've been coaching for 40 something years. I've made all the money in the world. I have my beautiful wife. I have all these children. I have these grandchildren. I'm just going to go because I'm not built for that path to take the journey needed to get to where we want to go. Cristobal immediately showed that he's built for this, and I love that.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge W for you guys. And it's no disrespect to Mark Richt. It was time. Like, you got to, he wasn't in that space is what you're talking about.
And I think you're seeing with Virginia Tech, I thought the year zero thing, that's a great thing to bring up because in Brent Pry's first year here, the talent on the roster was such that I don't think any coaching staff really had a shot there. It was a Jimmy's and Joe's issues. And now you're starting to see them build and start to get a little momentum. This year, we're maybe seeing hey, some things might not be working out how we want them to. And I think it'll be a critical point. Do they do what Miami and Cristobal did, saying, okay, now we need to pivot. Now we need to go in a different direction. Now I need to pick up this recruiter or this coach that I thought was going to be really good. Doesn't have the experience. I need to go get more experienced guy. Do they make that pivot? 'Cause I think that's really critical. A lot of coaching hires that fail, they don't fail in the first iteration of that coaching staff. They usually fail in the second, or the failure to make the second move. And
holding on to guys too long, for sure.
Yeah, holding on to guys. And Miami did, they basically, not quite clean house, but they brought in a whole lot of new voices. And you saw what they did. The transfer portal, that aggression was, I think, a lot of because they didn't feel like the guys they had on the roster were guys who were going to get it done. So I find Miami this season to be really, really interesting. And I know a lot of people in Blacksburg aren't happy about it, but I'll tell you, it is good for the ACC that the Hurricanes are.
I mean, we need somebody to be good. For Christ's sake,
somebody has to win the conference.
I volunteer as tribute. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
So brave.
Forever.
I think it's time that we take a look at this matchup on Friday night. Yeah. The rivalry, at least to us, returns after a brief hiatus. And Cam, I want to ask you: do Hurricanes fans view this as a rivalry?
I mean, it's definitely like a tier down from like Miami, Florida or Miami, Florida State. But I thought it was asinine that Virginia Tech, Miami was not one of the protected games when they went to 3 protected games.
Yeah, the first time around. Yeah,
for the first time around. Yeah, I thought that was like really crazy. Like,
yeah, they had us playing Wake and not Miami. Like, it was silly.
Right. Like, we've shared a conference for so many years. Like, even going back to the Big East and everything, like, that's familiarity. You know what I mean? Like, I remember all those games, from all the way through these last 25 something years. So I think that yes, but I mean, it's down in our rankings. Like, I'm sure that, Virginia Tech is lower or higher for you all than, Miami, Virginia Tech. But yeah, definitely a rivalry of sorts, and definitely, a team that we look forward to playing, have a long history of playing. And, I think it's going to be a tough game. Yeah.
I mean, and the games, there's been a lot of good games over the years. Miami has won 3 in a row and 7 of the last 9. We owned the series from 2003 to 2011, where we won 7 of 9. So we took our turn, you're taking your turn. And I think Miami's definitely gotten the better end of the deal, had the national championship runs and whatnot. Yeah. But preseason, I thought this was going to be the 3rd best ACC game of the entire year. 1 being Clemson FSU. That was wrong. 2 being Miami and FSU. That was also wrong. And 3 being this game. I actually had Miami and Louisville being my number 5 game. And that's probably number 1 at this point. I mean, if you're really looking at it, because you guys don't play Clemson during the regular season.
Nope.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Clemson doesn't play us during the regular season. But yes.
And so I would say Miami and Louisville, and then Clemson and Louisville are the 2 like hot games that are still yet to be played this year. But with regard to this game, Hokies did not hold up their end of the bargain going into this year. We were rolling in 2-2 with 2 really disappointing losses. What's the view on this game from your side? Is there fear that the Hokies potentially in a nut up or shut up kind of spot, that they keep it closer than you would think? Maybe a rivalry, throw out the records kind of vibe, or are you feeling confident?
No, feeling confident. I don't think that the rivalry is on the throughout the records level, between these 2 teams. And honestly, like, Yeah, I think that Miami is clearly the better team. I'm in an ACC and SEC conference picks league where I pick every single game with an ACC and SEC team. I picked y'all both of those times that you unfortunately have lost so far this year, including to my dream school, Vanderbilt, in the opener. Did not see that coming. I thought y'all were going to be able to curtail the little leprechaun Pavia magic. But hey.
If it had been week 3 or week 4, I think we would have. But I, for whatever reason, even though we had New Mexico State tape to watch, our coaches didn't pay enough attention, didn't prepare the right way. I don't know what it was, but the little guy took it. I mean, look, they took Mizzou to overtime, 2 overtimes this week. I mean, they're not a bad team, but they also lost to Georgia State. So a team we definitely should have beaten for sure.
Right. I agree. So, I mean, I think Miami's definitely rolling right now. A program record 209 points in the first 4 games of the season.
Is that right?
Yes, that is. Jordan Lyle, the freshman from St. Thomas Aquinas, had a program record long 91-yard touchdown at the end of that game. So think of all the running backs that have played at Miami. None of them have had a run as long as what we saw Jordan Lyle do on Saturday. Cam Ward is the first. I mean, every game that he plays is a new superlative. I believe he's the first quarterback in Hurricanes history with 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first 4 games. And it just, we're just rolling. And the thing about it is, like, he's missed throws. Like, we've left, honestly, in 4 games, we've probably left 50 points on the field easily. I mean, it was 20-something at Florida. We left another 17 to 20 on the field this week. I mean, like, it was just, we're not even playing it at peak efficiency yet. The thing that I will say I need to see be better starting this week is the run game, because the total yardage on the ground from last week's game is skewed entirely by that program record 91-yarder by Jordan Lyle.
Right.
Absent that run, Miami averaged 3.1 yards per carry. That has been an ongoing thing all season long. However, when you got the best quarterback in America throwing for 350, 400 yards every week, like, who really cares? But I'm just like, there's going to come a time, and it could be at Hard Rock Stadium, which is in, South Florida, and where it is in South Florida draws more rain than a lot of the other areas of South Florida, right? So what if it's a rain game?
Yeah, we want a downpour is what we want.
You guys absolutely do. But yeah, honestly, I think that this just comes down to Miami going out and executing on both sides of the ball. Virginia Tech has given up 10 sacks in 4 games. Miami's leading the country with 12 sacks, averaging 3 a game. And there's been a couple that, like, quarterbacks have stepped out of. That could easily be 14 or 16 sacks through 4 games. So I think that our defensive line is probably going to eat you guys' offensive line's lunch. That's really where we've been making hay on the defensive side of the ball. The secondary, which came into the season as a question mark, has actually really, really stepped up and been aided by that defensive line. And yeah, our offense, even if the run game isn't as efficient from a number standpoint, because early in the game, it can be challenging to run in open play. When we get down close, we lean on people. When it gets late, those body blows become knockouts. You know what I mean? Like that Jordan Lyle play probably should have been 20 or 30 yards, right? Not 91, but it kind of happens. But in the end, I think that Miami honestly is 3 touchdowns or more better than this Virginia Tech team at present this year. I think that Miami, covers pretty easily.
Well, the line is now up to 19.5. That thing keeps moving up. It's kind of nuts how much it's moved.
Right, and I think that we're getting towards where it should have been. I was really surprised that it only was 16,
something like that.
I think it was like 16.5 to open, and then it's ballooned by about 4 or 5 points.
Right,
I wouldn't be surprised if it keeps going up, honestly.
Yeah, I thought 21.5 or 23 would have been a reasonable opening line, like having seen these teams play. And I get it that people are pricing in Miami's history to what these lines are. They're saying, hey, we've seen the failings. We saw the Georgia Tech game last year. We've seen da-da-da-da. But, and I've said this on other shows, and I've even written it on the website, if you take this team out of Miami orange and green and you put them in somebody else's color, right? You make this a Purdue team with Drew Brees and just like improved talent across the board. You're not having these same concerns. The thing that gives people pause is the U logo and the fact that we've done less with more for 20-something years. But if you look at this team, the roster, what has been going on in a vacuum and remove the branding from it, I don't see how the line is under 3 touchdowns, to be perfect.
But Cam, I also think that the logo works both ways, where like once the hype starts to roll in, it does start to roll in droves. And so listen, there are some things in this matchup where we have a strength at corner, at least seemingly. Could that and our pass rush provide Cam Ward a little bit more trouble than he's used to?
And I think that's a good point too with Cam Ward is if he had a fallacy going into, as a potential NFL guy or what they had at Washington State, it was you would get really good game, really good game, really good game. And he hasn't had that yet. Now, will it happen against Virginia Tech? Probably not. I think they're going to control that game enough. But I think from your point, is it a little bit of, hey, we need to get this running game going, not just because you need to be able to run the football to win a national title, and Miami's here to win national titles. Is it also kind of, okay, Cam Ward has shown, and he's played a lot of college football, that sometimes he's not the most consistent game over game. I think it'll be really important for Miami to get Martinez, to get Lyles, like consistently moving the ball, not just chunk plays, but getting 4 or 5 yards a carry, leaning on that really good offensive line. I think it's going to be key because Cam Ward in years at Washington State, and even when he was at the FCS level at Incarnate Word, had games that he looked pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a measure of that, but I think with improved talent around him, most notably the offensive line, I think that that's the thing that raises the floor of his performance.
And
on
he's
a game-to-game
year
basis.
older too.
Yeah,
I mean, every year
absolutely.
you go by, like you get better, and the talent is way more insane than he's ever had before.
Yeah,
and it's similar but not the same to Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. Like, he has come out and even in the draft process said, I intentionally raised my risk profile because I was playing with farmers and gas station attendants, right? So I knew that I had to do some wild stuff to try to make things happen. I think that there was a level of Superman Cam at Wazoo where he's like, I know that I'm playing with the one wide receiver, Josh Kelly. Like, that's it.
Pretty much it. Yeah.
Right. That's it. And the offensive line was atrocious. So he's like, look, I gotta run around and I gotta do some stuff because, like,
that's a good point.
I can't sit here in the scheme and say, because even with good scheme, just like you were talking about at the beginning of the Brent Pry era in Blacksburg, it comes down to Jimmys and Joes. It comes down to dudes making plays. And I don't necessarily have that. So I am going to do more risky things to try to give them the time to have a positive impact. But then also, that's a double-edged sword because if it goes badly, then it goes badly. But yeah, I think that, we're really kind of reining him in. I think he's trying to show that he can sit in the pocket and make these throws that an NFL quarterback needs to make while still extending plays here and there. So, I mean, I think it's more on just the utility of the running game, especially early, because, I don't want to be in 2nd and 8 or 2nd and 9 all the time because everybody's crashing in the box. You get no yardage. Even if it's 3 yards, 2nd and 7, that's such a big difference in 2nd and 9. And then I'm fine with Cam Ward on 3rd down, but I would be more fine with Cam Ward on 3rd and 2 all the time than 3rd and 6.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like, I think that those kind of things are why I want to see the running game get a little bit better on a consistent basis.
Well, listen, we've had our issues in the run game. We did well against Monangai, held him pretty good, but that's because we were really selling out against it, and then the play action for Rutgers was working like a charm. So with the Hokies defense, they can step up, and we do have a good pass rush, and I said we have some good corners, but it's going to be a challenge. We know it's going to be a challenge. I'd be remiss talking about a Miami game if we don't go through some of the history, just because we've had some shockers against Miami. 1995, when we were 0-2 and you guys came in, we won. That's a long time ago, even especially for Sam, but even for me and Cam, that's a long time ago. 2013, though, Miami was the number 11 team. We managed to go down to Hard Rock and win. 2019, another game at Miami where Hendon Hooker got his first start and we went up 28-0, ended up holding on for the win. To a lesser degree, 2003. Because both teams were pretty damn good, but we got a big win. Mm-hmm. This year, I would say, is similar in nature to the 2019 situation because we were so down. We had just gotten crushed by Duke. And it looked like Fuente was cooked and everything was going bad. And we were able to come down there and get the win, as I said. But the difference being Hendon Hooker's not walking through that door like that. And he nearly won a Heisman a couple years later with Tennessee. So we knew how good he was. But we were 2 touchdown underdogs in that game, and we won outright. There is a precedent for big shocks by Virginia Tech in this series. Circumstantially, I don't think that's what this is necessarily built for, but I'm not going to just rule it out. 1, being a homer, but 2, history does play a part in some of this stuff. And it'll be interesting to see Miami, because they have not, I want to see Miami, and it might not happen against us, but I want to see them in a tight game, having to make these decisions, Cristobal, and does he do it right? Like, because that's going to be a thing. Can we go now? And I'm just trying to move along because I don't want to keep Cam for too long. We got other things to get to, but we need to talk about the rest of your season. You look at you got us, then you got Cal, then you got the big one against Louisville. And after that, it gets extremely manageable. At this point, with the way you've looked and the way the schedule's shaking out, are you in playoff or bust mode? Like, is this going to be a disappointment if you don't get there?
Yeah, no, 10,000%. We spent all the money in the transfer portal, to bring in Cam Ward, away from the NFL draft, to bring in a Damian Martinez, bring in a Sam Brown from Houston, a wide receiver who had that long touchdown right before the half this past week. Tyler Barron, who's playing like a first-round draft pick, All-American.
I mean, you lucked into him too.
Younger brother of Woody Barron.
Oh, was he a Virginia Tech guy?
Yeah. Woody Barron was a great player for us.
Okay, nice. Okay, so I mean, but like,
and we got the cousins going at it too in this one, which we didn't.
That is true. Yet. We haven't talked about that. Yeah, Cam Ward and Kyron Jones are cousins.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were working out together this summer down in Miami for a couple. Okay. Now, see, he hasn't it didn't rub off on Kyron as much that I wish it had, but yeah, they are related, and we're talking about that.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, like, and I mean, there's other guys like Simeon Barrow Jr. from Michigan State. We got in the transfer portal this year. Zach Carpenter, the starting center from Indiana. We got this year. Like Mish Powell, who I previously mentioned. Diani Hill followed his cornerback coach from Marshall down here.
Diani Hill's a good player.
Previously played for Lance Guidry when he was up there as defensive coordinator. I mean, like, yeah, we went full in, and we've seen teams do this. Like Florida State did it last year. And their season was, I hated to see it just because I never wish injury, but their season ended the moment that Jordan Travis snapped his leg. And if something were similarly to happen to Miami, I don't wish it on Cam Ward, but like, I think it would be pretty much the same. You know what I mean? Like, he is the star that stirs the drink. Like, we went all in on this season, and that was really our selling point to him. Like, we have literally everything. We're missing you, number one in our, on your program, or one in your hearts. Like, we'll give you the number one jersey you've always worn. Like, you are the missing piece to this puzzle. And like, I don't think that Miami plays to the level that they are right now without him. And at this point, yeah, absolutely. This is
how happy are you that he spurned FSU? I mean, think about that difference, right? I mean, I don't know how close it was, but like, there was talk of it before. Then he was going to go pro, and then he came to Miami.
Look, he ruled out FSU immediately after that visit, which made me so happy. But I mean, it's the double whammy. Not only is he not on their team, but also on ours. So it's a demerit for them and a super duper addition.
It's a power shift. So, it's literally a power shift because of one decision. You know what I mean? Like, and it's wild. That's where we're at.
Yeah, they say that they wanted DJU over everybody, but which is crazy to me. But anyways, yeah, this has to be playoff or bust all the way through. Like I said, 10-2 going into the year. Honestly, we're going to be favored in every single game. This needs to be 12-0 or 11-1 going into the ACC championship game. Like, there cannot be any shenanigans. Like, this is an opportunity that has seldom presented itself to Miami, and we have to lean in and have to be all in on it, like 100%.
Okay. Sam, you got something?
I just hope both teams have fun.
Yeah,
Marshall,
I'm hoping that we
find.
Listen, man. It's a national TV game. Yeah. We have looked uninspired, and before the Rutgers game, before the ODU game, Sam, and I have said we were this close to just like things clicking, and yet again we had a slow start and things didn't click.
Yeah,
if things were to click down in Miami. There's a possibility that we could keep it close and, basically do right by the national pundits and everybody, and like, okay, they can compete on a decent level. But I am nervous about that prospect. And if things do not click and we look the same as we looked the first 4 weeks, this could get ugly. And I fear that for our program, for the optics. I want it to be a competitive game. I know, Cam, you probably do too. Of course you want to win, but it would be nice if it was a fun game for a while. So thank you for joining us. Where can people find your stuff? Where can they look you up and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, before I get there, the last thing I do,
sure,
just in response to the question, honestly, it's going to take Virginia Tech being able to run the ball with the kind of efficiency that other teams have not, because you had to kind of shorten the game a little bit, and maybe get a turnover like USF did and things like that. So I think that there is a path towards competitiveness. I think that maybe there's also going to be a time where you're going to have to make a tough decision. And I've been there with Miami versus Florida State, back in the championship year for Florida State, that is. Whereas, do we try this risky thing? Do we go for it for 4th and 1 on our 47-yard line? Or do we punt? Because if you go for it and you don't get it, that's opening the door to getting blown out. And if you punt and you're playing conservative, that makes it look optically maybe a little bit better. So, I mean, I think that those decisions are going to happen. I know that you guys are going to be keyed up. It's really going to be incumbent upon Miami to come out early and really kind of, step on your face. But otherwise, I think that this could be competitive maybe for a little bit, but I do see Miami coming out on top.
I'll say this, I don't want to look back on this game like Kentucky is looking back on that Georgia game where they punted and it looks like now it's a 1-point loss, but it's still a loss. And they should have gone and never, if you give the ball away with 3 minutes left, you're not getting it back from Georgia. And so that in that kind of situation, I'm willing to take the risk. Now, I hope it's that close, but as I said before, make sure you plug, what do you need to plug over there? State of the U. That's where you can find Cam on Twitter. I think it's Underwood Sports.
Yeah, man. I always appreciate, joining people on their show. So thank you so much for the invitation. It's been a lot of fun. Again, my name is Cam Underwood, managing editor of State of the U, our SB Nation Miami blog. It is stateoftheu.com on all your socials at the State of the U. My personal Twitter is at Underwood Sports. But please come on over and fan with us over at stateoftheu.com. We're open all the time. We have a great crew of contributors really pushing and leading the conversation and commentary and analysis about the Miami Hurricanes. Really passionate about what we do. I am a Miami alum, one of the few. So, if you're like, oh, there's this guy who just like whatever. No. 2004 School of Music, baby. Like, hey, I'm certified and verified in these streets. But it's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to this game on Saturday. Thank you so much for the time, guys, and I look forward to talking to you soon, man.
Yeah, Cam, you are the man. Great analysis, and it was fun. It's always fun to chop it up, and with someone who's so knowledgeable as yourself. You've been working there, writing for them for a long time. Was it 2012 or something like that?
Man, yeah, this is like my 13th year blogging for Miami. I was a high school teacher before that, so I actually worked at Miramar High School. I started there. Geno Smith's sophomore or junior year was my first year there. So all of those things, I was doing all that kind of stuff before I started doing this as the part-time on the side, kind of passion project stuff. So yeah, been a long time, but I've been a huge sports fan my entire life. And it's just really a blessing. I get to be able to do this and talk to guys like you and write and support my Miami Hurricanes, man. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun and looking forward to the fun continuing on Saturday. Or Friday. Friday.
Yeah,
man,
Friday night's coming, man.
I will show up to the stadium late.
We can tell that you love it, man. Well, thanks again. Definitely. And we'll be in touch down the road. All right. See you, Cam.
Sounds good, man. Take care.
All right, Sam. That was awesome. That was a great interview. What a nice guy. What a knowledgeable gentleman is Cam Underwood. Let's get to our ad read. As I said at the top of the show, College Football Monday is brought to you by Jack and Coke. 2 legends, 1 can. Jack and Coke, the #1 cocktail in the world, is now available in a can. It's true. Jack Daniel's Tennessee Whiskey and Coca-Cola or Coca-Cola Zero are now available in a can at your local grocery and convenience stores. 2 legends, 1 can. Jack and Coke, ready to drink. RTD, grab those. And as always, when you're drinking those Jack and Cokes, please drink responsibly. Sam, we got some fun stuff to get to with the rest of the show here. VT Corner, though, is what we're going to do first. So this is not as fun as some of the other stuff, but we have to do VT. We just did Miami preview. We're kind of doing things backwards tonight, right? We're doing Miami preview. Now we're going back to Rutgers. We lost to Rutgers 26-23. Yet another terribly slow start for the offense. The first half and second half splits are getting absurd for this team.
Yep.
It was 23-7 before we started fighting back. And we actually got the game tied at 23 due to some 2-point conversions, which is it's pretty amazing the way they actually were able to get back in the game. But Rutgers unfortunately went right down the field with a long screen and kicked a field goal with 2 minutes left, and we couldn't respond. It was a lot like Vandy just at that point, like a little too little, too late.
Yeah, almost a mirror image, right? If you're talking about the momentum of the game, and the issues here were actually shockingly similar. The early special teams gaff, Jalen Lane fumbled on a weird fumble too. It's like he tried to brace himself with the ball and it squirted out. And I mean, he's probably an inch away from being down there in terms of his forearm being down. Rutgers scores off that to start the second half.
Can I ask you something? You were in the stands for that.
Yes.
You didn't necessarily see how close it was, or maybe you did from the Jumbotron, but
yeah,
when it happened, and I don't care that I don't care about whether it was or was not a fumble. That's not what I'm getting at. I felt like the game slipped away right in that moment. I know that sounds ridiculous from how early it was, but we're not a team that can make these kind of mistakes.
I think you're right. I will say, with the reaction of the Rutgers players immediately, I turned to who I was sitting next to in a very cramped Lane Stadium and said, like, I think that's Rutgers ball. Like just how they reacted was a very genuine reaction. Like they weren't trying to sell the official. And then when they went to review, I said, oh, that they're calling the review this late because it's a fumble. And then there was little resistance on the touchdown. And then you had the fumble to start the second half. And then there's a touchdown immediately after that. You look at this game and you're like, my gosh, you fumbled the ball twice. 14 of their 26 points were off of those fumbles. And they got the ball about 30 yards away from the end zone on both of those. Like those don't happen. You probably win the game.
And that's with our quarterback not playing well. I mean,
yeah, we'll save it a little bit, but you can't go 13 of 27 in big boy football.
Right. 0 TDs, an interception, a fumble, and 13 of 27, Sam, to be clear. A 32.3 QBR. His passer rating was an 84. Not the worst of his career, but pretty darn close.
Yeah.
He is not seeing things right now. And we can come back to it, but because there's other problems. But before we get to the problems, let's talk about Bashal Tuten. He continues to be our everything. And Pat hammered this on their show yesterday, but like we are underutilizing him so much. And I know there's a knee brace. I know he's nicked up, but 3 touchdowns and 122 yards on 15 carries. He seems all right.
Yeah, I'm we talked about this a little bit after the Marshall game, where it's if you are going 3 and out, like you don't have the opportunity to get the ball to your top players at that point. Like you need to avoid those, and Tech had a few too many of them. And I think you saw that. And I would also point to this game was a 2 touchdown game pretty quickly. And it was a 16-0 game after the safety. Like
that is true.
You start to get to a point as an offense where, okay, if they give Tuten 25 carries and the clock is ticking, then the conversation is, well, you're not getting the ball to Jalen Lane. You're not getting the ball to Felton. You're not getting the ball to Benji Gosnell. Like, if you are off track as an offense, it doesn't matter who you get the ball to. Like somebody is going to have to get those snaps. And right now they are struggling at the beginning of games to get everybody involved because they're going 3 and out or 6 and out so quickly.
I agree, but let me point this out. We didn't get him the ball on the first drive. It was the first drive of the game and the last drive of the game. Arguably 2 of the most important drives of the game.
And you could argue.
You didn't get him the ball. And so I have a problem with that. When you average a touchdown every 5 carries, you just have to keep giving him the ball. And I understand the down 14-0, shoot ourselves in the foot as we've done so many times, but it's unacceptable. 15 carries, 15 touches. Was it maybe touches, 16 touches in the game? Like,
that's weird too. I mean, he's tied for 6th in the country in rushing touchdowns, and he's tied for 5th in total touchdowns by a running back. He's having a very, very good year.
He's averaging a touchdown on the season every 10 touches. less than every 10 touches. So
That's
getting
like Christian McCaffrey numbers.
Not getting hit on with a horrible O-line, like with a very, very subpar O-line, he is getting a touchdown on 9.75 touches. Like, and if he stays on this pace, he's going to be like second in Tech history for most touchdowns scored by any position player. Like,
I mean, he's going to start hitting Lee Suggs numbers at this rate.
And so it's just unacceptable to not get him the ball, because even if we're down 14-0, our best chance on any play is Tootin. And I know he's wearing the brace. I know they're probably trying to like make him have as much burst on each carry that he can. And that's probably playing into all this. But we ran for 6.8 yards a carry as a team. And we gave Malachi 2 carries. We had our best pass blocking grade of the game. So in this game, when you're running for 6.8 yards a carry, you have your best pass blocking grade as a unit on PFF. To me, Sam, the O-line, as much crap as it takes, wasn't even the problem in this game.
Yeah, it feels like shockingly similar to the Marshall game last year, where it was like, if you watch that game, there were moments that you were like, well, Tech is clearly the better team. And then you look up at the scoreboard and you're like, wait, what is going on? And then you go these long stretches. I think Ox VT put it out on Twitter. And I know we're getting very niche VT right now, but
people know Ox.
The half an hour without touchdowns stuff is ridiculous, because
it's so ridiculous.
This team is, I mean, they had a positive adjusted EPA per margin in this game, just like they did against Vanderbilt. 85% of teams that have a positive adjusted EPA margin win those games, and Virginia Tech now has 2 losses. I mean, it's just it's the mistakes that they're making are not just kind of boneheaded, but they cost points. Like, they almost always result in 7 points for the other team, and they're good, but they're not that good.
And if it's not 7 points for the other team, it's a 3-point game deciding field goal against Vanderbilt, because yet another special teams fuck up. And I'm not trying to hammer Lane, and I shouldn't have said the O-line was horrible either, because they're really not horrible. I think there's a lot of factors at play. They're not good, but they're not horrible, and I shouldn't have said that. The scheme isn't good. The play calling is problematic, in my opinion. The line isn't great, but Kyron is also not great right now.
He missed two deep balls to Felton that should have been, if not big games, probably touchdowns that he just missed.
He's not letting it rip. He's being hesitant. You're right. He's missing. He threw one in the dirt. He's overthrowing.
Oh, that was probably a 15-yard gain that landed 4 yards short on a simple out route.
I called it a Donovan McNabb throw, because Donovan was famous for, he never wanted to overthrow and lead to interception. So he would underthrow a lot and he would dirt balls. And that's what that one looked like. And he's holding on to it too long. Like the safety, like, you're in the end zone, dude. I know that, like, Parker Clements, not a great play, but like, you got to get rid of it, bro.
Yeah. Like, it's getting tough to talk about, Pete. I'm not going to lie to you. And I would say more from a national perspective, like, Bud Elliott was probably right. Like, it is looking clear that this team is not there. It seems like they're losing the game Monday through Friday. Like, it seems,
sure does, because when you start that way, right?
Yeah. And I don't know, like, that's probably not all coaches. It's probably not all players. Like, it's a mixture of everything. Like, it really does look like this team is not used to playing in difficult games. And that probably leads to going 1-9 in 1-score games. Like, it looks like they just aren't ready. And the fact that Rutgers ran the same simple
we have
play action play.
Because this isn't going to be our full recap, but we need to talk about the fact that they ran one play 10 times.
10 times, and it was like it got successful plays like 9 times, and the one time it didn't was like a 3-yard dive forward, which is like not a terrible play. Like, they won the game on one play pretty much, that they ran over and over and over again.
And now I have to eat shit on the Calic Manic talk that, I put out there. Like, I didn't say like I said he was a bad quarterback. I did. And I'm not even going to stand by it because he looked calm, cool, collected. And he made the easiest throws of all time to keep gaining yards because our defense refused to adjust for 35 minutes or whatever it was. And so I'll give him his flowers, but I'm pissed because you need to adjust quicker than that. And when you hold Monangai to under 90 yards and you do the one thing that we needed you to do, but you sell out so bad that you don't bother to cover like a guy in the flat every play. Like
I am wondering, we saw similar action and it was a little different because instead of having that H-back tight end run a flat route against Vanderbilt, it was the third pitch guy. There is something alignment wise, and we'll have to ask our football film analyst, Mike Holmes, about this. There's something alignment wise with Virginia Tech where there's just no one lined up to cover that guy. And it happened against Vanderbilt and it happened in this game where that like offset tight end or whatever, if Vanderbilt was in the pistol and they had that offset back and then one behind Pavia, Tech isn't set up to run that. Like the nearest linebacker is Caleb Woodson, who is playing in the B gap. He's not even outside. And it's like, he doesn't even have a shot to really get out there in time because he has to play the run first up the middle. That's his gap. And it's something alignment wise. I don't know if Tech is tipping it off pre-snap or if there is some check with me that is not happening well, but it is a schematic issue because in a couple of those plays, Caleb Woodson makes one step to the line to cover his guy, sees it to play action, and then starts sprinting, and he's still not even close. Our corners are ran off the ball. Like it is
because he's trying to do too many things because he knows something's going to go wrong, so he can't just stick to his assignment.
Pete, we could go on for an hour about this, but I'm just going to say defensively, it looks to be more pre-snap scheme than it does effort or anything like that. And then offensively, Kyron's just missing throws, and they aren't getting too involved. That's pretty much it.
The coordinators are struggling. They are struggling.
They are.
Just too many mistakes overall as a team. Sloppy, unprepared, undisciplined, poorly coached. The S word has come to mind. I'm not going to say it on the pod, but I think you know which one I'm talking about. At the point of attack, they don't play hard enough. They don't play smart enough. Like hard, smart, tough. Like we're not doing it, man.
Yeah,
and I already mentioned
they look tired.
Yeah, too. And like, oh God, the memeable safety is just like, do we really need to not only lose, but like put a new meme out there? And I think who I forget who said it was like, oh, move over, Dan Orlovsky. We've got a new horrible safety.
That was a little company called Barstool Sports.
Right. Unnecessary roughness. Yeah, that's right. 3 turnovers. We're just saying the same things over and over again, Sam. Yeah. Run the damn ball. Mm-hmm. Play harder. Don't get off to a slow start. Like, and obviously these are things that are easier said than done, but like, we're paying these coaches a lot of money to figure it out, and they're not figuring it out. So Pry is now 0-2 in 1-score games this year, 1-9 overall in his time at Tech. Our worst fears that this team doesn't know how to win, and that they were trying to figure that out this year. Well, those worst fears have been realized, and I guess that's all for now. I don't know if you have any parting words before we move.
I'll save it for the 2 Deep pod.
Yeah. All right. Let's do that. I am drinking a delicious beer, which I'll talk about quickly. It is The Answer, and it's called I'm Never Gonna Stop. The Answer is a little brew pub in Richmond, and they have really good beers. My buddy Nick picked this one up. It's a hazy Dippa, Citra Strata, and Phantasm hops. This thing's phenomenal. Like it's like if you're at The Answer, I would definitely pick up I'm Never Gonna Stop, because even the Hokies keep losing, I'm never gonna stop doing this podcast, Sam. At least not for a while.
You're stuck in it now.
I'm stuck. So